Kansas State getting the last visit in a recruitment of this sort, where you think June will be largely impactful, I think is advantageous. I don't think having the last visit is always advantageous. I think that is overblown. But with the circumstances being what they are in this particular recruitment, I think that it is advantageous.
All right, welcome to another 3 Mall Pod. I am your host today, Cole Manbeck, joined as always by Derek Young, fresh off of vacation, battling a little bit of sickness, so bear with DY on this show. We hope he gets better. John is somewhere on vacation, no idea where he's at, but he is unavailable for today's show, so it'll be just DY and we are going to talk some K-State football recruiting. High school recruiting front has really picked up hot and heavy right now. K-State had double-digit official visitors in Manhattan this last weekend and has gained 3 new commitments over the last 48 hours that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about what's to come on the high school football recruiting front here over the ensuing weeks, as K-State will have many more visitors hitting Manhattan before the dead period starts. June is always one of the busiest months for K-State football when it comes to recruiting, and it'll be no different this June, as the Wildcats now have 7 commitments in the 2026 recruiting class. We'll dive into that, but first, you all should dive into some Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond bourbon from our friends over at Holiday Distillery. Go get stocked. I'll tell you all the time to do it. It's summer now. Football is going to be here. I mean, folks, K-State plays football in August. It is June now, so only a couple of months to track through before we are technically in the month of football season for Kansas State, which means you're going to want to have some Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond bourbon on hand for your tailgates this season. And also, if you're just out at the lake this summer, enjoying sitting by the pool, have some on hand, or 360 vodka as well. Ben Holiday also has their 8-year one barrels that are hitting shelves around the U.S. And if you're wondering, one of your states has those barrels or has that 8-year on the market, it'll light up if you go to holidaybourbon.com. And currently, Kansas and Missouri do have it. So after 8 years of aging, Ben Holiday bourbon, they are excited to announce a special limited release, and that's what's now available as well, in addition to all the other great bourbons they have. So go check it out. Check out your local liquor store, see if they have that 8-year aged bourbon on hand, and go get stocked up. All right, DY. K-State gains 3 new commitments this last weekend. I don't know if we expect any more, but for now, we'll go down the list of who committed, and we'll start actually with Keegan Collins, the offensive tackle out of Amarillo, Texas, 6'6", on 3 consensus, has him as the 681st ranked player in the country in the 2026 recruiting class, the number 54 offensive tackle. And I think the big headline with this one, DY, is Texas Tech really wanted Keegan Collins. This is a kid from West Texas, and the Wildcats beat out Texas Tech, and we know how much of a war chest they have when it comes to NIL, and that's a big recruiting win for the Wildcats.
Yeah, that's probably the story on that one, quite frankly, is that he was thought, at least a lot of people in that Texas Tech universe thought that was a slam dunk once he visited Lubbock in May, because, about every prediction that could be imagined possible was for the Red Raiders soon after that visit. So I don't know if there were some conversations that led the Texas Tech staff thinking that was going to be a foregone conclusion for them, landing the 6'6" tackle out of Amarillo. But we can honestly say the Kansas State staff stayed pretty confident, even amid all of that noise about Texas Tech, that they were going to land him. And I mean, it turned out to be very true. And it was kind of a runaway win for Kansas State. So the predictions for Texas Tech are quite surprising, because Kansas State had little problem winning the recruitment. Because, I mean, he could have ended it like people thought he would and not visit anywhere else and just call it a good and commit to Texas Tech. He didn't. And then he could have went on his other planned visits. He had other planned visits beyond just this trip to Manhattan. And those are the ones that are being canceled and eliminated in lieu of his commitment to the Wildcats. So an impressive recruiting win. And one of the other commitments, obviously, that we'll talk about is another Texan, I believe, in Justin Morales. It gives Kansas State 4 offensive line commits out of the 7 they have.
I mean, do you think, and we'll talk about Morales here in a minute, do you think they're done on the offensive line, or are they going to take best player available if one is available? They got 2 tackles now in the class with Oliver Miller, the Cherry Creek, Colorado offensive tackle, 6'6", 310 pounds. Now they have, who we were just talking about, as I blank on his name, Collins, and then Morales on the interior of the offensive line, and LaMarcus Barber, the Mill Valley product, on the interior as well. So you've landed 2 interior offensive linemen. You've landed 2 offensive tackles. I mean, do you think they take a 5th in this class?
They can be done, is what I will say, especially since it didn't have to be a massive offensive line class to begin with. But because they're in on Noah Best, who I believe is a 4-star prospect as well, and they were not thought to be a contender for him. Thought it would be pretty challenging, and he's a 4-star according to rivals. Most thought it would be too challenging for K-State to keep up with, and probably not in the mix for. And maybe that comes to true now with 4 offensive linemen, and maybe it's tough to convince Noah Best to be your 5th. But they love Noah Best enough that if he were to want to come, I think they would take him as the 5th. And that's one where they're really going head to head with, again, Texas Tech, Missouri, SMU, and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is a really good offensive line coach that recruits his butt off too, and Bill Beatenbow.
Yep. Well, Brian LePack getting it done on the recruiting trail out of the gate here in the first year as the offensive line coach at Kansas State. We mentioned Justin Morales, DY, offensive guard, 6'4", 260 pounds or so. I think he's listed on 3 at 250. I saw a tweet from Ryan Wallace mentioned that he's at 265 right now. He's ranked in the On3 consensus as the 1,078th player nationally and 104th interior offensive lineman. He's from El Paso. I mean, candidly, DY, when I watched his film and I saw Ryan tweet out highlights of it, and again, it's hard to tell. I mean, it sounds like 6A high school football, according to Parker on our Discord, so sounds like high-level football, and it's down in Texas. I mean, he is mauling dudes, and he's playing left tackle there for his high school. Will be a guard in all likelihood at Kansas State, but just destroying dudes, putting them on their ground, driving them back 10, 15 yards on numerous highlight clips. As well, listed offers from Michigan State, Baylor, Texas Tech, Arizona State, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Oklahoma State, Georgia Tech, Nebraska, Arizona. Could go on and on. And again, those are listed offers, so we can't say how many of them are committable. But certainly seems like this is a guy that maybe is better than what his ranking profile says on his recruiting profile right now. And a pretty nice get for K-State, because I think Baylor and a couple other schools were pushing hard for him as well, correct?
Yeah, Baylor. I think, again, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. If I was to, muster a little bit of an educated guess, I would say a lot of those probably still are committable since we're still just in the first week of June. I don't think there's a lot of guys saying no to this guy at this point in time unless they have like 4 or 5 offensive linemen already committed. So, again, I would agree with you. I think this is a guy that's probably going to rise up the boards. You love his film. What I know is, though he's listed at just 6'4", I can tell you that his reported wingspan now is also 81 inches. So this guy's got long ass arms.
I mean, so maybe a guy that could be versatile enough to play some tackle. I mean, he's playing left tackle at his high school.
Yeah, long enough to do it, but I think a lot of people see this guy as a center and maybe a next level center. Yeah. He's just because he moves so well, and he's probably going to stay on the interior, but he's just going to be a mauler on the interior.
Okay, well, that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a guy that can be versatile, can play guard, can play center, and currently plays tackle at his high school program, is long, and definitely has the tenacity that you like when an offensive lineman when you watch him on film. So a nice ad there for Kansas State. And then the other commitment from the weekend, DY, Tanner West from Katy, Texas, listed as an athlete, played receiver and running back, kind of a do-it-all player for his high school team, just under 700 rushing yards this last year, over 500 receiving yards. First team all-district, reported offers from SMU, KU. I think he was scheduled to visit Tulsa, Rice. According to Drew Galloway at KSO and On 3 for UDY. K-State offered West in February, built a good relationship with him, and he was a guy clearly that they liked and they're going to have on the offensive side of the football. Don't know yet if it's going to be receiver, running back, or more of a hybrid type mix. 6 foot, around 175 pounds. It's like he moves decently, but what do you make of this commitment?
Just a football player. I mean, he produces like every year that he's played football, and he's doing it at a very high level in Texas, mind you, and putting up crazy numbers. A guy that they trust to come in and put in the work necessary to reach his full potential. He's not like washout bust written on him. He will come in and he will do absolutely everything that the program asks of him and that he needs to do to be successful at the Big 12 level. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced he's an offensive player. And I think Kansas State's even considering the thought of moving to defense as well. This guy can do it all, really. So it would not surprise me if he ends up in the secondary.
All right. Well, interesting. I mean, when he first committed, I wondered if he could be a guy that could play safety as well. So perhaps that's something that's under consideration by Kansas State staff. We'll see. But we're going to talk more recruiting when we come back from break here. K-State re-solidified one of their commitments over the weekend as well on an official visit, and we're going to talk about other targets that are arriving in Manhattan. Actually, today, as we record, DY mentioned Noah Best, so we'll talk about that and others heading into this weekend as well as the next few weekends and give you a preview of potentially what's to come. But first, got to go over to Home Field Apparel and get stocked up with all your K-State gear. Over 50 K-State items to choose from. It's actually probably closer to 60 K-State items at this point. All the hats you could want. Several hats. I'm wearing one right now with the Shaggy Willie hat. And then also I've got another one right here besides me. That is another Shaggy Willie. I've got 4 different Home Field K-State hats in my closet. I've got numerous hoodies and T-shirts, almost a dozen T-shirts from Home Field. They've got hoodies, T-shirts, jackets, hats with retro sleek K-State logos, everything you could want there. Super comfortable, super soft gear as well. DY, you wearing anything specific today?
Tech, since we beat him on recruiting a few times.
Getting wrecked in Lubbock as Kansas State beats them out for Justin Morales as well as Keegan Collins, offensive line targets for the Wildcats. So look, they've got over 100 other colleges to choose from as well. If you're looking for a gift for a friend or a family member who's a fan of another school, go check out Home Field Apparel. We've got you covered over at homefieldapparel.com with discount code 3MAW24. Score 15% off your entire first order. Again, 3MAW24, discount code 15% off your entire first order.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Folks, it's playoff time, and if you're still just watching games, then you're missing out. With Pick 6 from DraftKings, you can turn your hoops knowledge into real cash. Just make your picks, track your score, and if you hit all 6, you're looking at bigger payouts than Prize Picks flex plays. Nobody's dropping better payouts than Pick 6. Hit 6 picks, and that's 25 times your cash. And if you beat your competition, you could be looking at a 500 times bag in your pocket. And right now, new customers can get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry. Here's what you got to do. The playoffs are on, so why not take a shot at making a little money while you're watching? Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN to play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks. Better payouts, bigger wins, only on Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
DY State also re-solidifies the commitment of Brandon Ford, who was actually the first commit in the 2026 recruiting class for K-State, cornerback out of Texas. I think Drew on your site had mentioned that he had potentially explored or was going to go visit Oklahoma State and Memphis, take official visits to those schools following his K-State visit, but it sounds like he has announced that he has shut down his recruitment for good and is fully locked into Kansas State moving forward.
Yeah, and even at one time, Texas Tech and TCU were threats as well. So good to get that locked in. Just with the nature of it, I might not close the book entirely there, but a good sign anyways.
It's interesting, DY. Only one commit in Kansas so far, and again, we know we've talked about the reasoning behind that. LaMarcus Barber being the one commit, and Ian Premer being really the only other main target that K-State is probably after in the state.
I think it would not shock me if they end up offering Lawson McGraw, John McGraw's kid.
Oh, really? Where's he at? Is he in KC?
Yeah, in Overland, one of the Blue Valley schools. I think off the top of my head, it's not coming to me, but I think he'll end up in the class. I know Drew's written about that quite a bit as I kind of look up to see Blue Valley West, which I think is John Kurtz's alma mater.
I'll have to go check him out for a game this year. I'll go there on behalf of KSO and On 3 and 3Ma and give my scouting synopsis and report to you, DY, if he's a guy that's in the fold for K-State. So did not realize that. I had heard that he was in Kansas City, but didn't know that K-State was heavily recruiting him. So we'll have to go check him out. But outside of that, I mean, to the point I was going to make, DY, is it feels like Texas, Oklahoma are real priorities in this class. I mean, they're hitting Texas pretty hard right now. 4 of their 7 commits are from the state of Texas.
Yeah, you just got to go heavier on your other pipeline schools, so to speak, when one's kind of unavailable to you because the way Kansas is recruiting. And I think they've explored Colorado a little bit too as well. Obviously, Oliver Miller already committed, and I think that might be a place they continue to go back to a little bit more than usual. And just with the nature of the composition of the coaching staff too lends itself right now to Texas and Oklahoma, because Matt Wells has recruited Texas, Luke Wells has recruited Texas, Buddy White has recruited Texas, Van Malone has recruited Texas, though he never recruited Texas until he got to K-State. I mean, Joe Klanderman's now recruited Texas for 70 years.
Yeah,
because that's how long he's been at K-State, 7 years. So he's well versed in the Lone Star State as well. So you got some guys that maybe not even originally, but they've done it for so long now that they have a comfort zone there too. And then obviously parts of the Midwest and even in Colorado's where Steve Stander can kind of get into a little bit as well. So that helps. So I think that's where we stand now. Matthew Middleton kind of stays in the Midwest a little bit too and goes to Florida a bit. Same with Brian Anderson, who kind of goes all over the place, helps them in Georgia a bit. So that's just almost a product of the makeup of the coaching staff. And obviously you got 3 coaches from Oklahoma on the staff now with Brian LePack and the 2 Wells brothers.
Yep. Well, in K-State's highest ranked commit actually right now is a linebacker from Oklahoma, DJ Ackerson, ranked as the top commit in the class, number 11 player in the state of Oklahoma, 596 player nationally, and a top 50 linebacker, according to the On3 consensus. So Oklahoma, a state that we expect K-State to continue to hit hard. Talk about a few more guys that are more of my favorites and probably your favorites that were on hand this weekend in Manhattan, DY. Cornerback Saborian Martin, Boss Martin, as he goes by. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his first name correct. Sounds like he is down to K-State, Texas Tech in Houston. K-State sounds like the front runner here. 6'2" corner, a 4-star by multiple services, 382nd player or 362nd player in the class, and 35th ranked corner, a top 50 player again in the state of Texas. What do you make of this recruitment?
Yeah, I think K-State's had a stranglehold on it for a while, but he has a decision date. I think it's a few weeks out still, so I think they'll find out the good news, I suppose, then, and maybe the same for Tucker Ashford, who's another 4-star. He's a defensive end that I think they feel pretty good about, but going up, I think that's the one they're going up against Illinois for.
Yeah. Drew reported that K-State going up against Illinois right now, 401st player in the country, 42nd edge player, and again, top 60 player in the state of Texas. He's out of Fort Worth, so defensive end, and it sounds like it's down to K-State and Illinois, and he just took an official visit to K-State this last weekend. Donovan Webb, DY, safety out of Texas, top 50 player in the state, 330th ranked player in the country, a 4-star by multiple recruiting services, top 35 safety in the 2026 recruiting class. He visited K-State this last weekend. Somebody they really like, but I think he's also slated to visit Michigan coming up. So that feels like, I mean, just from my perception, if Michigan wants him, that feels like it's going to be a really hard one to win. But what are you guys hearing on this recruitment?
I know he loves Kansas State, and he absolutely loved him when he was on campus. But like you, and this is just blindly going off of that, you would think it would be a tough one to win if Michigan really pushes for him. Now, he has an excellent offer list, and he's visited some really good schools, and he had some other visits that were set that are no longer taking place. So I think Michigan is that last hurdle that Kansas State has to clear.
Yeah. I also had a listed offer from Notre Dame and others, so a very coveted player. Hopefully K-State was able to sell itself in the success in the secondary. I mean, I saw he mentioned to Drew playing time being a factor, playing early development, obviously getting to the NFL. All things K-State can sell pretty well when it comes to safeties and corners and the success that they've had there. Rennell Johnson, DN, top 300 player nationally in the On3 consensus, 32nd edge player in the country, number 3 player in the state of Missouri. He's from Blue Springs. Took an official visit to K-State. He's slated to also visit KU and Indiana. What are you hearing on this one?
Yeah, that one, it would not shock me if it drags on a little bit. Because he's still shuffling visits around. So I don't think all of those are set in stone. And I think some other schools are really jumping in here. So that one I think is almost TBD, to be determined at the moment.
Okay. And then Noah Best is actually visiting K-State today, June 3rd. Is that right? So K-State has 3.
I was going to say they have a few guys visiting. I think Teray, is it Davis? Teray Davis, safety. Noah Best, a really good offensive lineman that they love, that I love. And who's the other one?
Darian Jones.
Omaha. Oh, yeah. Really good player. They are behind Iowa at the moment. They got to add to Iowa. Yeah.
Cornerback from Nebraska. So number 4 player in the state of Nebraska as well. Okay. And then as we, I guess one thing I do want to ask you before we toss to one final break, BY, is quarterback recruitment in this class. I mean, I think probably to a fan and to me, who hasn't tracked this all that closely, like typically K-State has been involved with some higher ranked quarterbacks over the last several years on the recruiting front. And it feels like they've had, from outside looking in, a hard time really identifying who they truly want in this class. You know, it started out with like Grant Smith, and then there were a bunch of other names, Palmer out in California, etc. They brought in a quarterback recruit on an official visit this last weekend. I'll let you pronounce his name. But, I mean, if you look at the recruiting profile, I mean, he's ranked as the number 76 quarterback in the class, in the 2026 class. Like, what do you kind of make of the quarterback recruitment and Matt Wells leading the charge on that? And is there a guy that they don't really love in this class and have had a hard time nailing down who they really want? Or what do you make of the QB recruitment in the 2026 class?
They really went all out for Derek Zammit. I think that's the one from New Jersey for a while. And they really pursued him as long as they could almost. But he ended up committing to Washington, and Kansas State really never could get that one to budge in their favor. I know they looked at Grant Smith for a little bit, but I don't know if that one was ever serious. Derek Zammit was the one that's serious, and quite frankly, he's a 4-star quarterback and number 16 in the country, according to On3. So that's a guy they really liked. And now you kind of look at that they're surveying both Brady Palmer from California and Miles Teodecki from Texas. Teodecki, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is the one from Texas that did put up back-to-back huge seasons at the highest level of high school football in the state of Texas. He's a lefty, a little bit wonky of a windup, but the stats and the production do not lie at the highest levels of competition and one of the best states for high school football that there is. So they're kind of going with pedigree there if they choose to go that way. Now, we don't know that a commitment is imminent despite Teodecki visiting Kansas State this past week, and maybe Kansas State didn't put on a full court press. Can't really confirm either way. Brady Palmer did visit Cal last week. That's the other school involved with him, and obviously he is from California. I don't think we've heard of a commitment there either, so I wonder if Kansas State still tries to get Palmer on campus. We'll see. I think he's already visited in the spring for a spring practice. Other than that, it's quiet, and maybe they wait a little bit longer because at this point you probably don't have to rush it if you're where you are at this point. You just got to make sure you get the right guy so that you aren't rolling the dice too much. But I know, and this doesn't make it okay because you want to hit on quarterback every class that you can. But if there is a margin for error, they have it because I think they love each of the last two that they've signed, both Blake Barnett and Dylan Duff, and obviously even Avery Johnson before that.
Yep. Big Dylan Duff fan, big Blake Barnett fan, and we've heard rave reviews about both. So feel good there. Just had questions about the recruitment of quarterback in the 2026 class. Teodecki, you mentioned he's from Texas, DY. His recruiting profile as far as like offers kind of reminds me of Will Howard a little bit coming out of high school. Will had more Power 5 offers or Power 4 offers, but he's got Cincinnati, and that looks like the only Power 4 offer, but then he's got basically offers from every Ivy League school, which if you remember, Will Howard had that, and then Coastal Carolina, Colorado State, UTSA, Texas State, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, UTEP, Wyoming, etc. For Teodecki. That's the listed offers on his profile. 6'2", 205-pound quarterback in the state of Texas. All right, we'll wrap this show up when we come back from break and talk a little bit more recruiting, set the stage, talk Ian Premer a little bit and get DY's thoughts on where that recruitment's headed and where things stand for the top player in the state of Kansas.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, DY, but I guess before we jump in to Ian Premer, maybe on the topic of offensive skill position, guys, like K-State is after some pretty good wide receiver talent right now. I mean, you mentioned, and I am blanking on the name. I believe it's a receiver from Oklahoma.
Lisa James from Norman.
Okay.
They believe they're definitely in that one. I think, what is his top 5? Does he have a top 5 with Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and I'm probably blanking on the other school that's in there. But maybe you can find that. But Kansas State is definitely in that game. I'm not saying that they are the leader, and they probably need some fortune like Texas, perhaps landing some of their other more prioritized targets. And maybe you would say Oklahoma because the kid is from Norman. And I don't know how hard the Sooners are pushing there, but I don't know that the kid is totally in love with Oklahoma itself. So I think that there might be a window there that Kansas State can just hang around. They could maybe, I wouldn't say luck into someone they covet, but, just outlast and be persistent enough to just be there when the chips fall and get a big prize at receiver. So Mason James, a 4-star from Oklahoma. I know Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, I think are 3 of the schools involved there. And they're also chasing Chase Campbell, a 4-star receiver as well, that will likely visit Kansas State. He might have one planned. I'm kind of blanking on that, but he has Kansas State in his top 7. So Now, 7's a little bit bigger of a number there. We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, if you get into one of those final groups and you get a visit, you get a shot.
Yeah, Mason James, number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma in the 2026 recruiting class. And DY, you mentioned the schools. Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, Washington, and Kansas State are the 5 in his final 5. According to a tweet from Hayes Fawcett, he expects to announce his commitment on June 25th. Now, when I look at like the visit dates that Drew's put together and everything, it doesn't look like Mason James has scheduled an official visit to K-State yet, but that's one that maybe could be in the works. Perhaps.
I would assume it might be there, but not known, or it's still in the works. We'll see. Chase Campbell's a 4-star receiver from Lubbock, so you would imagine Texas Tech can win that one. We'll see.
Okay. All right, and Hayes Fawcett, obviously national recruiting media person with On3, covers national high school football recruiting. So wanted to call that out. All right. So, and then Prince Jean is another receiver, and he was in Manhattan this last weekend, correct, DY? And it's K-State, Kentucky for Prince Jean, another receiver target, but it sounds like Georgia may be in on him too.
Yeah, and if Georgia wants him, you would think it would be pretty tough. So we'll see what happens. So some of this is just, trying to be there. And I know this sounds like a loser attitude. I assure you it's not. It's how recruiting works half the time. Is trying to be there, when a kid maybe doesn't get that Georgia opportunity that he's seeking and waiting for. Georgia goes a different route. Well, who's going to be there? Who does he trust? Who does he have the relationships with to fall back on when maybe that doesn't come to pass? And I think in multiple instances in this class, Kansas State's trying to be that school.
Yeah. All right, DY. Ian Premer, we've talked about him numerous times on the show before. Ryan and Kevin Flaherty on the Verbal Commits pod have had him on the show where he announced his top 5. Be sure to check out the Verbal Commits pod, by the way, on KCSN. Ryan and Kevin do tremendous stuff. Just had Lincoln Cure on about a week or so ago for another interview, second time that he's been on the show with them, talking about his upcoming time in Manhattan. So be sure to check out the Verbal Commits pod, and you can see it on the KCSN K-State channel on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and also please remember just to like, subscribe to the pod. Would love to hit 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube before we head into the season. I think we're at around almost 4,400 now subscribers to YouTube, and obviously we love you listen wherever you want to listen, but be sure to subscribe if you like the show, and make sure to like and comment if you would. All right, Ian Premer, DY, great Bend tight end, number 1 player in the state of Kansas, number 4 tight end in the class, according to the On3 consensus, a top 50 player in the country in the 2026 class. He was slated to visit Michigan. I don't think any of us ever viewed Michigan as really a threat in this recruitment, but they were kind of thrown into the mix. He was scheduled to visit them, I believe, this last weekend. And I don't think he actually did, right? He didn't actually visit.
It's my understanding that he didn't even bother to visit Ann Arbor. So like many thought, you got 4 teams here really heavily involved for the most part, with Notre Dame, Iowa State, KU, K-State. I think all 4 are going to get a fair shot in June. We'll see where the chips fall at that point. Who you talk to and what you hear largely varies in this recruitment at the moment. So I'll probably not be incredibly bold as I have in the past, just because it's hard to square one side's opinion with another at this point. I kind of trust who I speak to about this recruitment, obviously, but the range of opinions widely varies. There are some that think KU and Iowa State are in the top. There are some that still believe Notre Dame is a threat. There are some that think Kansas State is not. There are some that think Kansas State is the leader in the clubhouse going into June, much like they were with both Avery Johnson and Lincoln Cure. So it's interesting to see how this is unfolding and unwinding. My thought is, with those wide-ranging of opinions and beliefs on where this is or where it could go, makes me think it's more dependent and dictated by the month of June in itself. Because I think, assuming he makes all 4 of these visits, and I think that he will, either of the 4 schools can really make a charge and really make a difference and an impact and kind of swing this one way or another this month. So that's how I would view it. Kansas State getting the last visit in a recruitment of this sort, where you think June will be largely impactful, I think is advantageous. I don't think having the last visit is always advantageous. I think that is overblown. But with the circumstances being what they are in this particular recruitment, I think that it is advantageous. And I've heard, the conversations that he's had with Lincoln Cure in the last, couple of months have kind of moved the needle, so to speak. Kansas and Iowa State are both what it seems like zeroing in on another tight end. Now, that doesn't, in my opinion, mean that they believe that they're out on Premer. I think both are fairly confident about where they stand for the best player in Kansas. But it would not shock me if Kansas lands Braden Bach, a tight end. And it would not shock me if Iowa State lands Isaac Jensen, a tight end from Omaha. But both of those programs would still take Ian Premer. And is the Ian Premer going to be scared off by Braden Bach or Isaac Jensen? Probably not. But when push comes to shove, when two or maybe even three of the other schools have a tight end in the class already or will, and Kansas State does it, does that have an impact? We'll see. It may not. It may. These are all things to weigh and consider with this particular recruitment. Notre Dame just offered like 4 or 5 different tight ends in the past few weeks. So that's interesting. If that means anything, it may not. Again, as I know, one of their favorites that they were chasing, I forget his name, committed to Michigan, and that could have impacted it more than anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sounds like it could boil down to a good old Midwest recruitment here between KU, K-State, Iowa State, and then we'll see if Notre Dame is able to get into the mix. Iowa State, I know, is somebody that you've reported for quite some time that
he loves that staff.
Likes. Yeah,
he loves that staff. Yeah,
that's a mistake. Yeah, he shouldn't. So we'll have to get in his ear about that. But it's interesting. KU fans seem very confident on the recruitment of Premer, and just the different information that's circulating, because you've got sources, speak for you, DY, but you've got sources that think K-State sits in a very good spot. And then KU media folks who cover recruiting have sources that think it's KU, Iowa State at the top too. So I guess we'll see where this goes. I mean, I think K-State's going to make an extremely, extremely hard push. I mean, they really don't want to get shut out largely in the state of Kansas, I would think, in this 2026 class, and only LaMarcus Barber and then maybe McGraw being in the class. So we'll see. We know KU's made a big NIL push in this class and pushed hard in the state of Kansas for the 2026 class, including landing Dunnigan out of Manhattan. So we'll see if they're able to win out for Premer. And you mentioned Bach. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be scared necessarily of Braden Bach, just because, like, if he goes to K-State, he's got Lincoln Cure just one class ahead of him. It was one of the top tight ends in the country as well. Hopefully those two can be sold on playing together, because that would be quite fun in Manhattan. All right, DY, anything else to add? Anything we missed?
I believe so.
All right. Well, we'll give it a wrap. DY gutted it out for us. DY, I didn't actually think you sounded that bad. Thought we might have to reschedule this when I first heard you get on the pod this morning. But appreciate DY for pushing through on this. Appreciate Nick Springer behind the scenes, as always, for producing the show and making this happen. And hopefully we'll get John back here soon. We'll see about having another show later this week and what that topic might entail. We're getting closer to football season, folks. So the football coverage shows that we start to kick off, and all the preview shows, Big 12 media days, etc., we will have it all for you here on 3 Malls. So tell your friends about the show. Again, like, subscribe, comment, etc. It all helps us and helps people find the show. And go get stocked up with Holiday Distillery's Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon. Look for that new 8-year aged bourbon as well. If it's in your local liquor store, give it a try, or just try the good old-fashioned Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon. It is tremendous stuff. As well as get on over to Homefield Apparel, homefieldapparel.com, 3Mall24 discount code, 15% off your entire first order on anything you secure there, but over 50 K-State items to choose from at homefieldapparel.com. Appreciate DY, appreciate Nick. Thanks for listening to another episode of 3 Mall.